Order our work session meeting of the Board of Trustees for the Village of Port Jefferson. It is 5:05, May 8th, 2024. Clerk Perillo, would you mind confirming the presence of a quorum? Present. Present. Here. Thank you. Just a reminder to everyone, please turn your microphones on when you are speaking, so that people who are listening can hear. Thank you. And Jewel just gave me the thumbs up, thanking me for saying that. Okay, I'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Right. We're starting with monthly reports, correct? Can I just go out of order so I can go? I don't need to go first today. All right. So can we start from Trustee Cassay? Can we start with you? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I have a couple of items to touch base with the Board of Trustees on. I'll first start with my committee reports. So the tree committee met last week and discussed the reflections on the Arbor Day event. That was a huge success, and how to make 2025's event more successful, smooth, and wonderful. They also asked if I would read an expression of gratitude towards our Parks Department. So just briefly, the Tree Committee of the Village of Port Jefferson would like to acknowledge Phil Gianetto and John Van Gelder, as well as Dave Melios, for their outstanding dedication and hard work to make sure that the village's first annual Arbor Day celebration on April 24th, 2024 went smoothly and on schedule. Bless you. Their professionalism and expertise was very much appreciated. So they wanted to express that. And I will add express an expression of gratitude to the staff and everyone else who made it happen here in the village. It was a really wonderful community event. So
Thank you to the clerk's office.
Yes. Yes, much handling of correspondence, and I sent the minutes over today as well. We were discussing how to make communications between committees and the clerk's office smoother. So I'll follow up with you on a conversation to get your perspective on that. But definitely, always an endeavor to make the pipeline of communication more efficient. They are continuing to work on discussions regarding our current tree code and possible amendments. They'll probably be diving into that this summer a bit. And they have extended an invitation to the mayor, the treasurer, the planner, and any other appropriate staff and board members to their July meeting to discuss how the tree committee can help make a plan to spend the budget line for trees in the village. So looking at sort of comprehensively, what the goals are for plantings in the village and maintenance, and start to step forward from there. So I forwarded on that invitation, and they look forward to collaborating on that.
Can we discuss that?
Of course, yeah.
Right. So, you and I have had discussions, and I think Trustee Giuliano and I have had discussions just, in general about where the tree committee is in the hierarchy of, or the structure, the org chart of the village. Mm-hmm. And the tree committee, from my perspective, should fall under the under the Conservation Advisory Council as a sort of a subcommittee of that code identified organization. Mm-hmm. And that code identified organization actually is part of is under Parks and DPW. Mm-hmm. The Conservation Advisory Council operates in through really the two areas that Trustee Giuliano is the liaison to, commissioner of, mm-hmm. thereof. So to me, it makes sense for trustee Giuliano in his capacity as the commissioner of the, of Parks and of Public Works to really be the liaison to that, and understanding that you are the Commissioner of Environmental Sustainability, which touches on, as you've said, everything. But really specifically, I think the Conservation Advisory Council has a much more sort of a role that has been identified in the code, and the tree committee should definitely be working through the conservation, from my perspective, should be working through the Conservation Advisory Council and in through the trustee commissioner of those departments, with obviously a dotted line to environmental sustainability until and unless that role isn't fulfilled in the future. But that's the vision that I see as appropriate, because the Conservation Advisory Council in the code has jurisdiction over parks, trees, public works, sewers, storm drains, everything that really is the functional really infrastructure of the village. So I'll just posit that out there, throw that out there, and I think if Trustee Giuliano is willing to take that one on with the tree committee, I would be happy to step back and be part of that after, when you guys come to decisions, conclusions, and work it through the Conservation Advisory Council. That would be my thought about that. I don't know if anybody has any other opinions about that or not.
Well, that's.
Bob, why don't you use that microphone? Let's put that one away, because it's so confusing.
You want to take that one? I think I just turned that on. I lost my train of thought now. Oh, that's something that actually we can discuss come the reorganization meeting, or, Rebecca's doing it. I can definitely, work with Rebecca, and then.
So there was an email
transition.
that went out that you didn't see, and they were, what were they inviting us to do?
Sure, to attend the July meeting of the tree committee to discuss. So in the last budget, we had talked about as part of this Tree City USA certification and the village's movement towards investing in our canopy here as part of green infrastructure, putting the $2 per capita into the budget for tree maintenance and tree plantings. And so that is in the budget now. And so it being a new item, having a discussion about how to spend those monies in the coming year, and how to connect them with the village's other goals, especially stormwater infrastructure, as well as beautification. So having a more global conversation, within the village on how, this money can be spent to accomplish multiple goals. So if I'd be happy. I'm always very happy to work with Trustee Giuliano. So happy to bring you in on those conversations there as well. As far as the tree committee being sort of under the umbrella of the CAC, the only issue I see there is that the CAC is codified to have 7 members, and so the tree committee is currently, I think there's 6. Forgive me if I'm essentially it's a different subset of residents who are volunteering specifically to tackle the tree related aspect of that. So we would just have to have an internal discussion about how that works under the current code, or if there has to be an amendment put forward, or like what that relationship is.
Subcommittee. It's a pre-existing subcommittee. Maybe you appoint somebody, or there is somebody actually on the tree
CAC.
committee that's
Yeah,
on the
that's
CAC.
on the
So,
Yep.
so anyway,
But
it's already there. I
absolutely.
don't think we
No,
have
we'll
to.
figure out how to. And they definitely do. There's that overlap, and they.
So maybe they can come up with an idea. But do you want to mention that now? Okay.
So our public hearing for the bamboo code is scheduled for the 29th of May. I have a draft version in my possession from Attorney Moran. I have some questions, and I'm asking for clarifications. So once that draft is finalized, we'll distribute it to the board, and then, of course, as always, to the public.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that update.
You're
I'll,
welcome.
I'll send that on to them as well. Okay, the upcoming items. Just wanted to see if we're having a discussion today about the transition from Google to Outlook. Is that on our?
It is.
Very good. Oh, I'm just stealing all the thunder.
Next.
Yes. Okay. Very good.
But
So
we're
I'll-
not going to bust into our agenda to talk
No,
about
okay,
that
all right,
right now.
all right. I'll just, it's been something that's on my mind organizationally. So, as far as smooth transition, so I'm
It'll
exci-
impact everybody sitting around this table.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I'm excited to hear that plan. We also have the USGS meeting coming up, which I'm very excited about. The folks coming in for the from the U.S. Geological Survey. They have chosen Port Jefferson as a site to study for compound flooding. So we're going to be meeting with them and I believe sitting here in Village Hall, but also hopefully walking around the village a little bit, giving them documents that are helpful to further focus their study of the flooding here in Port Jefferson so that we could better understand what kind of infrastructure will actually have a mitigating effect on the flooding. So that's coming up, I believe, this coming Monday. I sent an email out about the Lexington, the sinking of the Lexington signage. Did everyone receive that yesterday? I tried to print multiple copies, but my printer apparently said only one. So I have photos of the possible locations. Is there any feedback on that? That's
I didn't have a chance to look at it, but do you have something
Sure.
we can look at now? react
Absolutely.
to?
So essentially, the trustee Giuliano, myself, Chris Ryan, and the Brookhaven historian met us, and we walked around the harbor frontage to discuss where a possible educational sign, much like the few that we have throughout the village, could be placed to let visitors and residents know, in an educational fashion about this event, the sinking of the Lexington that happened just outside of Port Jefferson Harbor. We came up with a couple of possible locations, and so wanted to bring those back to the Board of Trustees to see which location or locations would be looked on favorably before this group of residents and local historians took the next step on that signage.
Which is the most significant physical location of those that are identified here?
We talked about there's the dock that goes out, where the Seawolf.
The pier?
The pier, yeah.
Mhm.
There's actually a bump out
Mhm.
on the right side when you're walking out. That's we guessed is actually made for some kind of signage. So we were thinking.
At the very end?
So there is a location at the very end, but then there's also one like a third of the way out on the right side.
Oh, yeah.
So we were thinking one of those two locations could be a good addition. We were noting the sensitivity to sort of the vista and not crowding. If there's a beautiful natural vista, you don't want to have a sign, hanging out right there. So if it were at the end, sort of putting it on one side or the other, as opposed to smack dab at the end there.
Where did it go down?
Just outside of Port Jeff Harbor. So it was an icy night, and so much so start telling. Yes. But so much so that the harbor mouth had frozen over, and so rescue boats couldn't get out there, and so there were only 3 survivors. It's quite a tale. It's not the happiest thing. To be sure, but it was a piece of history that I think anyone who attended the Historical Society dinner was it was an eye-opening piece of history locally that I know I didn't know about prior. And so I think one of our great assets here in Port Jefferson Village is our history, and connecting people to that, and just making a richer experience for folks who are either visiting or locals, to just understand the context of the place they are and how it was. So, again, just looking
I
for.
guess it depends on what's on is there content written for the actual?
Not yet. I figure before folks put effort into that, just take the temperature of the board here as far as this, if the message is, this sounds like something the board is interested in, but we don't, the location might depend on the content of the sign, then I think that's enough to then go back to the folks and say, hey, can you draft something up? I just, I know in my experience, we don't want to have people put a lot of effort into it, and then you bring it and then we say, yeah, you know what, we're not interested. So, we had a meeting, the minutes are included there, and then following that meeting, we took this walk and went through and identified a few potential locations.
I'd like to see more about the story
Mhm.
that goes with it and what the content would reflect. And maybe that does impact a location.
Sure,
Mhm.
very good. So, but generally, we feel like there's a place for it somewhere along the harbor.
Um, I think so. I would like to see the content of what we'd be saying and talking about. Most of the other content of the material along the harbor and along Mill Creek is really like about, right? Yes.
Yeah, I know there's a signage out here about the boat building and our history there.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So, and Harborfront Park is filled with plaques for people who are remembering their family members who have passed.
Mhm.
So what the historical significance of this event is, and I'd just like to have more information about that. Not saying that it isn't historically relevant at all, but really curious as to what the content would reflect and how it impacts and what the impact of the history of the village is, kind of thing.
sure. I'll pass that back to the working group and circle back.
Who were the people that were on the
So on the ship,
who went down with the ship? Like what's the nature of the people who were on that ship? Is it on the Lexington?
they were, so it was a ferry, it was like a very innovative ferry boat that was built by, you might have to help me out here, one of the Vanderbilts.
One of the Vanderbilts. I don't know which one, but it was-
And it was the fastest ship that would ferry people from Manhattan up to Boston, I think. Do I have, sorry.
So it was
I was getting help from
consumers.
the audience,
It was it was consumers,
Yes.
residents of the village, or
not residents of the,
do we-
not, well, I don't think there are any residents.
was it a maiden voyage or?
It was, so what happened was, as it was close to just off Port Jeff Harbor, the one of the innovative, but apparently not wonderfully innovative things about it was it wood burning or coal burning engine, and it set the ship on fire, and so it ended up going down, and lost a great many lives. So in part, it would be in memoriam to the lives lost just off of the harbor here.
Right, there were 3 survivors, not enough lifeboats.
Right, sort of a,
Reminiscent of the Titanic.
yeah.
This was many years before the Titanic.
Vanderbilt's on the Titanic too.
There you go. Maybe. Is this a
Were there
conspiracy?
Vanderbilts on this?
Yeah.
On this ferry.
It was owned by the Vanderbilts. I don't know if there were any Vanderbilts.
Oh,
on it.
okay.
Yeah, on the ferry,
So
ferry.
maybe we bring Bill Blyer in to talk to us about this. How about that?
Well, and I'm sure, he would, and that's who gave the,
Right.
the lecture there. The other thing that's being discussed, in addition to, or maybe alternatively, is one of these, New York State historic, marker plaques, sort of I think they're metal, the blue and yellow ones.
I don't think they make them anymore, but there is a company that will do it,
Yeah,
that does do it.
yeah.
I don't think the state does it.
There's a name, some name for like the granting agency or whatever that would put it through. So that's another option to look into, something less scholastic or informative and just more of a marker of, memoriam to the lives lost. So
Okay.
I'll bring
Alright.
this conversation back to the working group. Again, Chris Ryan is on there as well. And
I'd just like to hear from the historian himself, if
Sure.
that's possible, just to, maybe we can invite Bill Blyer in to just give a brief presentation about this. Can-
sure, and just a mock-up of what the content of the sign might be.
Um, from Bill Blyer?
I don't, he's on the working group.
Yeah, he'd be the best.
He
one to write
presented
it.
to the Historical
Yeah,
Society,
so
right?
He'd be the best one to write the content.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's-
I'm just curious to hear that,
Sure.
I guess that same presentation, a similar presentation, maybe abbreviated or something like that. For the
Very
board and
abbreviated, yeah.
for the village.
Yeah, sure. I will make that request. And then speaking of signs, so I've been discussing for the last couple of months here and there these plaques that were found in the sort of back closet of a DPW of the DPW building here. There were World War II commemorative plaques, and so there's been a working group that's together. Nikki Kampura from our Historical Society, Chris Ryan's on that one too. We have the Kumswag Historical Society working on that as well, and looking to sort of represent them to the public on the 80th anniversary of D-Day, which is June 6th. The VFW in Port Jefferson Station, in conjunction with our American Legion, is willing to host the event, and so just wanted to run that by the board to essentially have these plaques brought to the event, put on display for the evening there. The historians have been doing research on the names that were found on the plaques, so finding local family members who are still local and inviting them to to whatever event is put on, and just celebrating the history of these folks, and the plaques originally being at the Lace Mill, which is just on the other side of the tracks. And I think what we believe is that they were on display at the Long Island Railroad station for some time, and then some renovation happened, and then they ended up in our DPW building.
That's how it happened.
That's the best story that we can
Yeah.
get from it.
Okay.
So I don't know
That
that
was
they're
from what, 2001 or
Yeah,
2
early,
or
yeah,
3?
2001 or 2.
Yeah.
It was
yeah.
originally written, the first renovation.
Yeah. So this is sort of a step in
2000.
in a direction of a conversation to figure out where the permanent home of these plaques will be. That's some ideas have been discussed, but we figured in conjunction with this 80th D-Day anniversary, sort of reintroduce them to the public, gather some thoughts from the public as well. Maybe people come out and have more stories or context on them, and then the working group will continue to work to suggest permanent locations for them. But we just wanted to check in to make sure that having them brought to the D-Day event was in favor of the Board of Trustees.
And remind me, where is the D-Day event?
The VFW in Port Jefferson Station.
Oh.
Yeah.
No objections?
Okay, very good. And of course, when invitations are formalized, we'd all love to have everybody there. It's going to be June 6th, I believe, 7 p.m. At the Port Jefferson Station VFW,
What day of the week is that?
a Thursday.
And is the MTA involved in the conversations about permanent location, or?
Haven't gotten there yet. We're going to be having a discussion or continuing all the discussions that the group decided after this event.
Mhm.
But if one is going to end up at the train station again, then of course that would be very necessary to have the MTA involved in that.
Okay.
Some other locations that were thrown out there is the War Memorial Park, the Brookhaven War Memorial Park here in the village, and VFW Hall itself up in Port Jeff Station. So there's a lot of possibilities. We want to make sure that they're somewhere that's safe and secure. These are bronze, brass. They're valuable for the metal, but obviously much more valuable for the history. And so we want to make sure that they're in a secure location that and mounted in a way that no harm can come of them.
Okay.
Lastly, I just wanted to express appreciation for the discussion we all had about 6 Acre Park, and the resolution, from that meeting. To my understanding is that we're going to submit the paperwork, which is not onerous, to the village to go ahead and accept and keep that window open for the grant.
It was submitted
Mhm.
already, as well as the topographical.
Okay.
So that was submitted.
Great. And so that checks all the boxes we need that New York State requested?
I believe so. I'm going to check again tomorrow. But everything that was required initially has been submitted.
Excellent.
I'll double check.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Working our way back up, trustee Biondo?
Sure. There's a planning board meeting tomorrow, so there'll be more to report at our next meeting. Hearings that are built. Of note, they have, the building department has 19 new permit and planning applications received in the last 30 days, and does not include approximately 31 foils awaiting response. Other interesting information, there's a possible letter to the New York State DOT regarding the Route 112 corridor, the supplemental traffic plan, impact analysis regarding State Route 347 to North Country, and I believe that has to do with the development of the shopping plaza up there, or proposed development. Other notables, the Rental Code Committee had their 4th meeting back in late April, and they're reviewing long-term and short-term rental and bread and breakfast policies and accessory apartment regulations and various, they're looking at other municipalities to see how we compare, and then I'm assuming they're going to have a request or a recommendation to the village and to the village attorney. And I think that's just about it. I'll have more at the next meeting because they have a hearing tomorrow night.
Okay, thank you. With trustee Laux being excused tonight, I will read off on his report, all right? The highlights therefrom. So just an announcement, fireworks show will be Wednesday, July 3rd, rain date July 6th. There it was discussion at the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council meeting on May 1st in reference to 2 locations that they are recommending that the board consider sort of naming opportunities. And those include Caroline Avenue Field, where Joe Erland Field, Caroline Avenue Park, where Joe Erland Field is located. They are recommending that it be named for the family who donated that land to the village. Right now, the surviving family members are Peter Haywood and his daughter Randy. And so they were suggesting that we named the park, the entire park, for the Haywood family. And I believe at one point, and I need to go back to the village historian to see what the genesis of this is, because I think of Caroline Avenue, because I think the park was named for the Haywoods initially. And when the home came down and they built the barn and parking lot, somehow that disappeared. I don't know if that was the time frame when it disappeared or not, but we'll find out. We'll try and find out. But the recommendation is to have Joe Erland Field be located within Haywood Park. So that was one. And then another one is in recognition of a former mayor, Bob Strong, who has passed away now, but Bob Strong was the mayor when Harborfront Park, the area where Harborfront Park is located in the village center, he was the mayor when a referendum took place, a vote to purchase that land from Mobil. And there is a stone with Bob Strong's name on it, and a plaque, but the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council is recommending that the roadway be named in Bob Strong's memory. So in naming it Strong's Way. The current name of the roadway there is up for debate. We're seeing a couple of different things on GPS and Google. No. It's Harborfront, the roadway into Harborfront Park and in through Centennial Park, right? And it's called Surf in some circumstances. In some other circumstances, it's called Passway. And really, the Village Center is located at 101A East Broadway. So it's, I think there's some, it'll be interesting to figure out what it actually is called on the map. I don't know.
Yeah, and how to designate that? Because I know, like, even the yacht club, if you try to direct someone to the yacht club, it's like one passway, or not even a number. It just says passway, and it's very
Ambiguous,
yeah, thank you, perfect word.
unambiguous.
Ambiguous.
Yeah.
Yes. We want to make it unambiguous.
Yes. So, that was recommended, and so we just have to go through what it would take to make those two things happen, and put it up for a vote with the Board of Trustees, and maybe even as soon as at the next meeting. Don't know. We can get it all together that quickly. I don't know. But it would be resolutions, yes, putting that together. Beaches open June 22nd. There's a full staff of lifeguards on board. Kayaks, canoes, and surfboards, there's still racks available for rental. Youth summer camps start July 1st. And Stan is also working with the school district on some safety reports of safety issues. Most significantly, the safety issue that continues to occur on the south exit area of the school driveway at the cafeteria on Old Post Road. So I think there's a meeting coming together to discuss that with all interested parties, including possibly the Suffolk County Police Department and definitely code. So, and then we also got a request from this is outside of Stan's report, but we got a request today from the prom committee to have an organizational meeting to help secure the safety of the prom parade of attendees, right? So I think that covers Stan's report. And so we'll move to Trustee Giuliano.
Thank you. Stole some of my thunder there for the Parks Department. That's okay.
So sorry.
That's fine.
That was written in Stan's report.
We just
Okay.
had to coordinate who's going
Yeah,
to discuss.
so
it. So he went
sorry.
first, so he talked about
Yep.
it. So that's fine. DPW update. Steve's been conducting interviews for open positions. He had discussions with Suffolk County Water Authority regarding the recent road openings and repair to East Broadway, as well as continuing water leak issues throughout the village. So he's staying on top of the Suffolk County Water Authority for that. They've been conducting numerous pothole and berm repairs throughout the village as a result of the winter and the rain events. Thorn Avenue, he has replaced, and I'm sorry Mark's not here to hear this. Thorn Avenue replaced the no parking signs that was somehow removed. He doesn't know how they were removed, but the signs were taken down on Thorn Avenue and they've been remounted. He's notified the construction contractors and the developer in the area, and they're all know that there's no parking there, and they will not park there. PJ5 truck is out for repair. Steve's been working with Treasurer Gafka to secure 3 new Ford Explorers for code enforcement. Under parks, they've been replacing and repairing broken windscreens from the numerous April storms that we had. Joe Erlin Field repairs are made. They were all set for the start of the softball season, including the safety netting at the end of the field to try to keep the balls in the field. Planted, as Trustee Kasay mentioned, he planted 2 trees for Arbor Day celebration. East and west beach houses have been freshly painted and they're ready for beach opening. The newly leased gator that's going to be used at the beach should be arriving soon. And they've been repairing numerous lights on the pier at Harborfront Park. Apparently, they're not sure how they broke, but they're assuming, they're thinking that, some sort of mischief, kids throwing rocks at the lights, so those lights have all been repaired. And he has notified code to keep an eye on that. Parks and Rec Committee, as as the mayor mentioned, talked about renaming Caroline Avenue Field, and the board voted to do that. They also request that a sign be posted at all the parks giving the number for code enforcement. They said that, Rocket Ship Park, whatever, they need to get somebody there in a hurry. There's a couple of signs uptown that say, you see something, say something, call code enforcement, and it lists a phone number for the code enforcement.
There
So
are
they're-
signs all around Rocket Ship Park that, I remember this came up last year. There are signs all over Rocket Ship and Caroline Avenue Field that have code enforcement.
Listing code enforcement, okay,
Yeah.
because they felt
Yeah.
that they were on it, but okay.
Yeah. Maybe it needs to be on the other side of the fence, right? So on the inside of the fence, because that's where people
Oh,
are when they're
mhm.
experiencing issues. So maybe we flip a couple,
Okay.
all right? That's an idea.
Don't want to overload it with signs and everything, but.
No,
Yeah, if
but
we could just
maybe
take them from on the outside, yeah, or back
yeah,
them up, yeah.
front and back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Parks and Rec. So a couple of questions or a couple of other incidents. The Election Task Force Committee, are we going to be discussing that at all, with their recommendations and,
I feel like it's an important thing to do,
Okay.
to vote on that. We need a resolution.
Mhm.
Rebecca, you want to write that resolution up? That was your baby,
um,
indicating of their recommendations and if we want to put it on an agenda for a vote.
yeah, just
Right.
didn't want to fall through the cracks, so they
Thank
took
you.
time to put together the
Yep.
report, so.
So are we accepting the recommendations?
That's what the resolution would,
Yeah.
would,
And then we would get
stipulate.
to discuss.
yeah.
Love
Mhm.
Thank you. I'll work with Sylvia.
Does that make sense, Attorney Moran?
I think maybe to put it as a topic for discussion. What you don't want to happen is to come up for a vote, there be a resolution to accept them all. And then confusion about what's gonna get crossed out or not crossed out if there's further discussion towards an end. I would prefer, for cleanliness, add it as a work session agenda topic next meeting. Fully vet it, and then have the final resolution adopting what the board decided it wants to keep and what it may want to put out.
So election law question, maybe, maybe not. When the board, and if the board decides to adopt the recommendations or shift and change the recommendations and vote on that, and it doesn't require a vote from the public, right? A referendum. Does it take effect immediately or does it?
I'm sure some of the things discussed are currently in the code. As far as term limits and terms of office and other things, it would require code amendments.
Public hearing.
To put in the public hearing to match what we make those recommendations.
Okay.
I don't recall off the top of my head, I know it was a very thick presentation and it covered a lot. Some things probably can implement right away, some things that are codified need to be codified and need the legislative equivalency. That it was given when it was originally.
Only one significant
Yeah.
change, recommended change
That it was a term limit for the
for the mayor. Yep,
and that's it.
Yeah.
The
of course.
The others were all, if I remember well, the others were to keep the status quo, with the exception of that one.
And I know, like in the county, for example, often when those, if a term limit is adopted, it is often done by referendum, so that it's the voice of the people. And then it often sort of starts, like whoever is in the positions that being affected, essentially the clock starts then, right? So if there's a term limit for, for the mayor for 8 years, whatever it is, or, however, I forget, right? It was 8 years, 4 terms?
I think that was the recommendation.
Then it would be, if adopted, for example, by referendum, that 8 years would start then. Right? There's no look back. I guess it depends how you write it.
I agree with everything you said, and I also agree with it's, you could put a law on the books that takes effect starting 2025. You
Right.
could put the law on the books and make an effective date anytime you want, but you do, so what generally in my experience, if you're subject to term limits change while you're in your sitting position, it would not come into effect until you're elected again. So you don't get to
Are you
go.
talking about people who, like, let's say, are you talking about people who've run before and served before? It would not impact, it would start with
I don't
those
think it would.
people too?
I don't think it would affect them at all. But if you run from, you're up in 2 years, right? Or a year and a half from now, right?
A year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A year. Okay, so next year, if we put term limits in for 8 years, I believe when you become elected mayor next year, that starts your 8 years.
Correct.
That's how it's written.
If that's, yeah.
I think that's just how it goes.
Right.
I don't think that's a drafting or an effective date thing. I think it becomes effective on your next term. And if you can't finish, there's an issue right now in another municipality where they're suggesting increasing the term limits, or the length of term. But the individual who's currently sitting on the board can't finish that term if he's elected again, so therefore he cannot run.
Can't run again.
So I don't think we're not playing with the length of time you could serve pursuant to the, like, if it became effective this year and you ran next year for 2 years and that was your 8th year or whatever, then it would affect the fact that you can't finish the term. You would have to be able to finish the term.
Gotcha.
It's interesting. But once we have the discussion, we'll have all the law to support what we're going to do and how to do it.
Let's put that
For
on
the-
the agenda for the next work session.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, and I think even if we're resolving to put forth a referendum in the 2025 election, I think we all. What?
Go ahead, finish your sentence,
no, sure.
please.
Sure. No, I just didn't know if there was a legal.
No,
If I just
we had, I think, I
stop
believe we
saying
had
what I was
already
saying.
looked into how soon can we do it if we wanted it this June
Yeah,
election.
And
It's not possible,
and
right?
it's not.
No.
No. So that's what I'm saying. Even if we're putting a button on it if the board resolves that it wants a referendum, we can set it all up to queue because we all know that these months then fly by, and just know that it's like in waiting to just, when the time comes, put it forward and have it there.
We could also approve it subject to the referendum whenever it takes place. So if the board wanted to support it and make those changes, they could approve it, approve the code amendments, get them all drafted and prepared to go, subject to the referendum. If it passes and certified, then it becomes effective.
Perfect.
Very good. Thank you.
I just,
Okay, so I didn't realize it was going to be that long of a discussion, but I just didn't want to fall through
well,
the-
thank
the
you for
cracks.
bringing it up, Bob.
We're finishing Ethics Board interviews. We have one more person that we're going to interview on Monday. I think you have somebody else that you have. You
Correct.
still have to,
We have one more person to interview.
then we'll put that together and we'll shake things all
No.
out. No.
No,
Rebecca
we
and I
haven't
are-
set ours.
Oh, okay.
I haven't set this, there's one more person that we did not interview yet that we couldn't get
Oh,
hold
I
of.
think
so-
I know who that is.
You know, we
Yeah.
have one more person that we could have interviewed.
And Stan already provided his recommendations.
Okay.
And overall, the candidates have been incredibly impressive. And I'm just so grateful to our village and the residents therein to see people who, I've never met some of these folks before. And so it's a great just opportunity for more folks to get engaged in village government.
It warms my civics heart.
Did it grow 3 times bigger?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mayor and I met with some residents recently over at the Brookhaven Boat Ramp to discuss the renovations that the town made.
We didn't set that meeting up.
We Right.
We
Just an
were-
ad hoc meeting. We just
we
happened to be
walked
at the right
over.
place at the or the wrong place at the right, whatever.
no,
but,
no.
the right place at the right
We
time.
went over to take a look at the new lot because it was new, I
Right.
mean, and we'd been hearing rumblings, seeing threads of texts. So go ahead, I'm sorry
Right,
to
and then-
interrupt, but
One person came and one neighbor came and somebody else drove by and it became a
it was
little,
amazing.
little,
It was great.
little meeting there. It was a very good meeting. So I know we're going to follow up with the councilman too.
Yeah, it looks like we're gonna meet with, Brookhaven on Monday.
Good.
Looking at Monday at 3,
Okay,
okay?
Good.
So if you can respond to that doodle
okay.
request.
They installed cement piers. Do you know what those are about? Is that going to be lighting?
The lighting.
I think
believe
it's
the
lighting. It looks like lighting.
Yeah, I know, I was informed that they made a lot of last minute changes, sort of in situ,
Mhm.
which I'll reserve my personal opinion, but have been surprising to see, versus the plan that was advertised.
And it surprised some of the residents along the street as well, so.
Yeah.
Final thing is I met with a resident today on Main Street in front of Billy's. She's requesting that one of the parking spots just to the north of the crosswalk in front of Billy's be removed. So I met her there and it just so happened that Andy Owen was there, Constable Chief was there as well for another matter. And we just started to have a little discussion. As we were discussing, some big trucks came down and we noticed that, yeah, it probably, that one spot, even though you hate to lose a parking spot, that one spot probably could be eliminated just for safety reasons. It's sort of like on the crest of the hill, just at the turn, and it makes it for awkward if you're crossing the street from Billy's going across the street over to East Main. So that's something, I think the board has to discuss and
I'd
take
like to
look
see
at
a
it.
no stopping, no standing. There's all kinds of trucks that park there and unload their,
Mm.
right on Main Street. And it's just a head scratcher.
Because this is a parking spot that actually, you have to almost walk halfway into the street to see if there's
I'm
cars and trucks.
completely in agreement with that observation, and I think I ran it past Public Works too, the superintendent of highway, who was in agreement with that too.
Mhm.
Question is, do we need to do anything legally to remove that spot, or do we just need to wash the marking and paint it?
Mhm.
No stopping, and put up a sign
That's it,
saying no stopping, no standing.
Because it's state road. I don't know if that.
I think we have jurisdiction over the signs. But I guess I don't know.
You probably need some type. Although we can regulate the parking. obviously.
Right.
Changing it might subject to some type of.
I
Well,
wonder,
Can we find out
Yeah.
for sure?
That's it. That's an example.
I don't know if this, I don't think this exists anywhere else on Main Street especially, but, it's a visual issue when you're driving south there and not being able to see the crosswalk, or a car coming if you're a pedestrian. I wonder if we made a couple of motorcycle parking spaces instead, so that, cause then you can see through, but you're still providing some kind of useful parking, just a constructive alternative.
I think the village ran into that issue before. You can't restrict parking to a certain type of vehicle.
Oh, I think you're right.
So what about very,
Yeah.
very, very tiny vehicle parking?
Yeah, smart cars don't-
Yeah. Okay, that's, yeah.
That's something I guess we could check into too.
And the parking spots in front of the crosswalks are problematic
Yeah.
Yeah.
everywhere
Yeah.
on Main Street, right? And the one outside of Dunkin' Donuts
Mhm.
and the one outside of Billy's, both are problematic. So I think you'll let us know if it requires state approval.
The Starbucks.
And then if it requires board approval to
The,
remove the parking from
handicap
that
cars.
location. Okay?
Remember
Again, it's
that?
gonna be
Yeah, that's-
legislative, that's on the, so
Yeah.
You pass a resolution for the number of parking spots somewhere or whatever, then my gut's telling me that you can regulate it and remove it at your whim.
Okay,
That's what my gut's telling me, but I
Alright.
will verify that.
thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Okay, I want to go back to trustee Cassay with the tree committee because this came up over the weekend. The whole ivy growth around the trees in the village and that the inventory thereof and can you update us on where that stands? Because I'm pretty sure Newsday wants to do a story on that now.
Excellent. Well, the more education, the better. So, as far as the English ivy on trees and the effort to devine the trees, there's different.
Wait a minute. Isn't somebody on the tree committee named Divine?
There is.
Come on.
This is her destiny. She is fulfilling it.
Divine is
Absolutely, divine. Divine is divining.
Oh, my
You know,
goodness.
it's you can't
Kelly
you
Divine.
can't make these things up.
Mhm.
So.
Perfect. It's like Tiger Woods being a golfer.
There you so yeah.
Mhm.
So that's one of the sort of corners of the mission of the tree committee is the inventory of trees and then the health therein. So as we've noticed with these more frequent and intense storms, we have trees coming down, and the majority of the trees coming down are covered in English ivy. And the way, trees, when they're covered in English ivy, not only is their health compromised for a number of ecological reasons I won't get into right now, but also every one of those little ivy leaves, think of it like a sail, and it's kept catching wind. So when there's a big windstorm and you have a tree that even in the wintertime, if it doesn't have its leaves, the ivy still has leaves. And so it's taking that velocity of the wind and it's impacting the tree much more. So it's more likely to fall over. So the tree committee had Herb Monis from the Three Village Community Trust come in because they really have done a wonderful job formalizing their devining efforts. They have a whole website committed to it. They actually got sort of lawn signs here and there to help spread the word about it. And the website describes how to divine a tree. What tools do you need? What precautions to take? And so that's to help residents, with their own properties, people who want to volunteer and go out with permission on public properties and cut away these English ivy vines to help prevent further tree damage. So we've been, at the tree committee, they're looking at sort of building on that effort. Reinventing the wheel is definitely not effective. And so they're trying to figure out the two prongs of it is educating our residents here about devining on their own properties, the private properties. And the other prong is to look at potential efforts from volunteers or to educate our parks workers who I know already do this when given, when they have the time and opportunity on divining village-owned trees. So anything on our parklands, anything at the golf course.
Who in the Three Village Community Trust is the point person there?
Herb Monis.
All right,
And
and do we look at Kathy Chavon as the point person from our tree committee who's most vocal about it, or?
She's not on the tree committee. She got in touch with the tree committee.
Oh.
And as well as I know members of the staff and other and likely you, Mayor, because she's been expressing a lot of concerns, specifically largely about trees that some are not on private property, and some might be on village or state right of ways. Trees that are leaning and have ivy on them,
Right.
expressing great concern about
Yeah,
that.
and also to see if we can work together with the Village of Belterre and creating sort of like a Three Village Community Trust.
Yeah,
sort of
that's something,
circumstance.
that's a concept Kathy has brought forth to the tree committee. So she attended the last tree committee meeting and had a discussion with the tree committee regarding these further efforts.
What's the next step for that?
So Janice of the tree committee is actually our, I forget, I think she's calling herself the Vine Czar. So it's not Kelly, unfortunately, so it's a missed opportunity. But Janice is the most passionate one about the devining. So she's going to work with residents like Kathy Chavon and others to try to make a plan internally. I know we're lucky to have Ann Leahy on the tree committee, who's an attorney, and so she brings the legal perspective of, yes, it feels like it would just be a simple and easy thing to just send people onto properties and attorney shaking head, with potentially sharp objects and encountering poison ivy and all these things. So, it's been a internal discussion with the tree committee as to the best way to roll out this, again, the educational side to empower people with their own private properties, and if they want to talk to their neighbors and, whatever they
So
do
we
on their
have-
own
We
time.
have a structure created by the Three Village Community Trust already, right? And
Yeah.
so is that one of the next steps, is to work with them and seeing how we can bring what they're doing to Port Jeff?
Correct. Yeah. So Herb has come in and presented to the tree committee. That was one of their first meetings. And that was really a very enlightening presentation, not just, both as far as the devining goes and other, just structural community efforts. So that's definitely, they're actively working on a plan. I think they're putting together a brochure of sorts to, that they would hope to put on our village website, but it's all based, again, on the Three Village Community Trust.
Okay, well,
efforts.
let us know, or maybe Janice can, maybe there's a contact inside the staff, like whether it's parks or it's probably DPW, right? So let's start that connection sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
So that it's not, so it can move from the meeting table to sort of an action plan.
Absolutely.
right.
I'll start looping Bob in on all that.
Okay, thank you. Update from the mayor's office, okay. So we have a meeting coming up this week with the Conservancy. Bob, I think you're part of that meeting to talk about the beach box project, the planters going down East Beach Road.
I was told that there'd be a message coming in, but I never got anything, so.
You didn't get the invite?
Was there,
All right.
But what's the date?
It's tomorrow, I believe, yeah. 2:30. And yeah, you are on that, waiting for your response. So it's somewhere, invitation from Rita. So Rita invited you to that meeting.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Putting it in my calendar now.
Okay. Thank you. So the structure of that project is that the Conservancy will be, we are also reviewing the Conservancy's bylaws, which they recreated recently. We have those in hand. We're going to talk about that tomorrow in tomorrow's meeting. We're also going to look at the agreement with the Conservancy that has been restructured, revised, and will probably come before the board at either the next meeting or the following meeting thereof. Because it was ancient and not relevant anymore.
I see.
Some of the references were
Predated the
irrelevant.
farms.
Yeah. Ethics update, Bob, you brought it up, you have one final meeting. I would really like to see the recommendations from every trustee to their top candidates. So, and then we'll have a discussion. I had hoped to have the discussion in executive session today. Maybe we still can, but looks like it might be one more meeting worth, I don't know. Parking, as everybody knows, and I'll look to our treasurer to update us on where the numbers are at this point in time, but parking is fully activated. Pay for parking in the village is fully activated. We've updated the signage to be complimentary and uniform branding. And we've installed signs that indicate where 2-hour parking is the maximum in front of specific locations where it had existed prior, in front of the backside of Harbor Square Mall, and looking as if it will be looking to be along Mill Creek Road, along the brewery parking area. There are a lot of complicated issues related to parking, and when you sit around a table and you ask for an opinion, about one topic related to parking, you get a different opinion from everybody that's sitting around the table. So it's not an easy lift. There's a lot, and I say this all the time, there's a lot to unpack that's been packed over the past 10, 14 years related to parking. We went back to hang tags for merchants, as we all know. One hang tag per merchant was the recommendation from the parking committee. And one hang tag per employee was a recommendation when we went to license plate reader, the license plate reader program. That was the first year being last year. Permits were issued to multiple permits were issued to one person. Multiple permits were issued to one business. Multiple permits were issued sort of there was no real rhyme or reason for issuing multiple permits, except there was a different license plate under that person's name. It's impossible to unpack, but we are figuring it out. And so met last night with the bid to talk about how things are going. We issued the signs, the posters for the merchants to put in their windows saying, if you forgot to pay for your parking, just scan here or text PJ blah, blah, blah number to number. And then we also produced those little business cards that the business owners love because it just makes their life so much easier to scan it, hand it to a patron, somebody who comes in for dinner, whatever, they forgot, I forgot to scan my license plate number into the parking meter, blah, blah. We are still having issues with the parking meters, and I'm looking at Stephen, but not for any reason, but maybe you can let us know what the wonkiness is around the meters. I know that I was out to dinner with friends of mine the other night, and some of them didn't live in the village, and they were struggling with the meter. Even though the instructions are there, it wasn't about the instructions. It was something about the meters technology.
Yeah, the meters themselves are a generation from 2013, so they're old. They're in a state where they kind of need to be updated and replaced. So there's different mechanical aspects to them that seem to be failing. The coin, where you put your coin slot in, that seems to get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
The bills, where you put your bills in, sometimes that gets jammed.
Mm-hmm.
If it runs out of paper, it goes out of service. But I've quickly kind of figured out how to fix some of those things. So been kind of running around, prior to having parks updated with the whole aspects of the maintenance to get it quickly fixed so that we don't fall behind revenue wise. But those are some of the aspects. They're old. And they're kind of slowly falling apart as, technology seems to do when it's more than 10 years old.
Okay, thank you.
Especially that it's exposed to the weather all the time.
Yeah, true. We put covers over them over the winter, but still in the
And
season.
sometimes might exacerbate it because it keeps moisture
moisture
in.
One other aspect of managed parking are the parking signs on Main Street, East Main Street, Arden, and West Broadway. They're all different. Some say, the timeframes are consistent. Timeframes that you can park maximum of 1 hour or 2 hours, East Main Street, Arden. And in front of the post office, it says 10 minutes, but then there's another sign, one sidewalk measurement next to it saying you can't park here from X time to X time, but you can park here on Mondays, Wednesdays, and it's just, I'm just being, being hyperbolic, but the language on these signs is very confusing. It's not consistent. It needs to be consistent. And we are looking at, Andy Freeling is looking at creating a consistent sign for Main Street, a consistent sign for East Main Street, consistent sign for Arden, what the day limit, time limit, except for holidays, is going to become a non-issue anymore. It's just, it's bizarre. And I do not believe we need to get public's feedback on that. We're not changing the times, we're just changing the language on the sign. So I think we should have that done fairly soon. And that was also a recommendation of the parking committee. Belterre has reached out to us in a formal letter asking us to consider issuing parking permits, paid-for parking permits to the residents in Belterre Village, zip code 11777. And so I think we sent that out to the entire board for consideration.
Mhm.
Do you have any thoughts on that off the top of your head?
How many, I don't know, Steve, do you know, how many did we do? We did sort of as a pilot program the last couple of months of last year. Do you know how many we sold?
6.
6. I don't know, was it successful or was it just because it was at the end of the year? I don't.
So you're right, it was a pilot. It was off-season to take place sometime after Labor Day up until parking, paid for, parking enforcement ended. So that was about 6 or 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks. And there really we weren't actively communicating it to Belterre residents. We left that up to the mayor and the board of trustees in the village of Belterre. So while we made the the permitting process available to them at $25 for the end of the season, whoever took advantage of it took advantage of it. It didn't cost us anything to do it, did it?
Just time. But that's it.
So it was successful for those 6 people that
I've been asked about it. People
Yeah.
want to do it.
a lot of people from Belterre didn't even know about
I
it.
didn't know.
So
Has the parking committee weighed in on that at all?
they're meeting tomorrow, so it will be discussed. Yep. The clerk sent us the letter. A member of the board of trustees has discussed it with me. I'm not sure how many, but so Rebecca, do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I'd be curious first to hear the parking committee's thoughts on it. I know that, like we briefly talked about in Patchogue, they have a permit that anyone can purchase, like an annual non-resident permit. Yeah, I think the parking committee, I'd be curious to hear the parking committee's thoughts on paid for permits in general. This loops back to the employees, the issue with employee parking. If it's worth it for an employee to say, hey, I'm just gonna purchase a parking permit for Port Jefferson and have my parking covered, not worrying about the meter. Because there's two factors. One, is it economically advantageous to just purchase your parking permit? But I think the bigger issue that I remember discussing last year was convenience. That if Belterre residents want to come down and grab a bite to eat or do it, they don't. It's the fact that they have to either pull up their phone or go to a meter and take care of the parking is actually the more annoying thing than the $3 or whatever it is to pay. So no, I'd just be curious about parking permits in general, non-resident parking permits in
And
general.
again, it does not usurp the resident parking.
No,
right,
no, it wouldn't
so
be. Yeah, it wouldn't
does-
be in resident parking.
Doesn't enable
spaces.
them to park in resident parking spaces, and it
No.
would not be a free parking arrangement.
Right.
So, so Stephen, thank you. Just a real quick feedback from you on where we are financially. Are you able to provide us just with a quick year-over-year sort of comparison or time frame over time frame? Because we opened a month later than we did last year.
Yes, I'll use the numbers from yesterday. I'd run it through yesterday.
You don't have for today?
I could have it in about 10 minutes.
Just update us later when you get it.
That's fine. But as of yesterday, from the time frame that we opened, April 15th through May 7th, year over year, we were up 16,000. We are down on the whole for the year, but that's because last year it opened March 15th. So there's a month of time where we were not collecting anything. So overall, we're down 23,000 on the year, but that is rapidly catching up. I think some more enforcement presence has helped make sure that people are if they're longer term parkers, they're getting off of the streets and they're parking in the lots, and I think the presence has helped make people realize, you know, we got to pay for the parking. So the revenue's up over this time frame of being open compared to last year.
Thank you.
Is that because of,
Is that because the rates went up? Do you know what, compared the number of uses, same time frame?
The number of uses is down slightly, but it's partially.
Compliance, it sounds like compliance is
Yeah,
up.
it's compliance. The actual time frame, the average transaction time is down a little bit, which causes more turnover. So I think it's partially the increase in rate, but I do think that it's more compliance with more people paying as well. It doesn't explain the entire rise.
Right.
I think
Okay.
these business cards are, the business owners were so happy about these business cards. I think it's really going to impact compliance as well.
and you're getting what you want, space turnover.
Right.
Yeah.
Farmers market, first outdoor farmers market occurred on Sunday. This past Sunday, it was set up not on the Harborfront Park walkway area. It was set up on right around the village center, because we were sort of running a pilot to see if this would be an acceptable way to run the farmers market to avoid the constant treading on the grass and, you know, park maintenance issues that our Parks Department was encountering, with the grass being muddied, trampled, and very hard to bring back every week after the farmers market, especially when it rained. So we set it up to run through, it was set up to run through from the entrance outside. Did anybody go to the farmers market this weekend? Outside, in and around, opened up the doors to the village center, the front, doors to the village center, and then inside. And when more vendors come, we will set it up on the rink outdoor. So it seemed to work well. The vendors were a little concerned at first, and I think the feedback that I got in real time was positive. It really flowed very well. The farmers market was amazing on Sunday. The products that they have there are incredible, and looking forward to seeing how the coming weeks turn out, with the setup being around the village center versus Harborfront Park, leaving the park open for people to enjoy and play and utilize while the farmers market's underway. Any feedback on that?
Yeah, the only feedback I had gotten was, of course, people and change. It's a difficult, any change, good or indifferent, is tough. So I think the couple of the vendors I had spoken to, they said they're just looking forward to knowing sort of consistently what the new flow of things are, so that they're not like jockeying for a spot every week when they arrive. Usually with their old setup, they knew where their booth was going to be in relation to the pathways and the park, this and that. So they're just looking to feel certain that there's a new routine that they can settle into, so that when they know when they arrive, this is where I'm going to set up. So that was the feedback that I got.
I guess Melissa's going to be all over that. She's very good at what she does.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm just
Yeah.
asked for feedback. That's what I heard. But otherwise, it looked great. And seeing, the northern bay doors were open, right?
Yes.
Which is something that we don't see often. It's
No.
kind of a cool feature. Yeah.
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 There are bay doors that can open all over that building, right? I also wanted to go through this list that I handed out earlier. There are extra copies here if anybody in the audience would like to see what we're talking about here. This is a list of capital projects and grants administration more than just capital projects, I think, is it? It's probably, it's all kinds of, it's infrastructure projects. Maybe that's all capital. I don't know, Stephen, it's your. But basically, I wanted to create a list of all these projects that we're working on to give everyone sitting around this table and elsewhere an idea of what this tiny little staff in Village Hall and at DPW and Parks, everybody's working on. Just so that when something comes up and we can't get to it immediately, it will be understood that there are a lot of other things that are taking place and need attention. So the delegation process is only as good as the amount of people that you have to delegate to whom you have to delegate. So I'll just read off some of these things. So Tooker House, and I'll give an update on each of these things where I can. And I'll look to the clerk and our treasurer to update on things where they can, and anyone else that wants to chime in can. Tooker House, we just received a brand new and required appraisal for the value of that house, which is required by DASNY to move forward with the grant that it takes to purchase and change and get the title of that house. So that will take place after the start of the new fiscal year, and we will rapidly turn around the request for reimbursement of that money to get that grant money back. Might take 6 months, correct? The Barnum Sidewalk project is in the process of design. We got we have the design from PW Grosser. There's a area of the Barnum sidewalk between the parking lot and the shipyard that is constantly being unearthed due to running water, is what it seems to be. And so PW Grocers has looked at that, and now it is with, I think, our contractor to get a final design plan, construction plan to address the problem. Am I right with that, Stephen?
Yeah, what we're waiting on is estimates based off of Grosser's design to make sure that they are concurrent, and so we have a final number to be able to.
And that's with DF Stone or F&F Concrete?
I believe it would be with DF Stone.
Okay. So then we have the culvert project, which is another grant, and that is the cleaning out of the culvert. Where we stand with that is a FEMA?
Suffolk County Jumpstart.
So 100% grant. So we are in conversations with the county about what we're required to provide next to move that forward. And that was, what was that?
So we're going to work with Attorney Moran
A meets and,
about
meets
meets
and
and bounds,
bounds.
getting the area,
right, for
the
the,
exact area district
Right.
that we were going to be cleaning out.
yeah, I remember. Okay, yes, I recall seeing that email.
And you're looking at the 2019 report for that? Do you want me to forward that to you just to, so that you're sure to have it was a report, this is before my time, but that was a Grosser. Somebody did to survey the inside of the culvert, and so it can help maybe provide context for the meets and bounds.
Yeah, we're going to be using Grosser's information about what needs to be done. They know exactly where it's going up to, so we're going to be providing that information to the attorneys to be able to then provide it to the county.
Perfect. Thank you.
Rebecca, do you want to update on climate resiliency real quick? Snapshot?
Sure, is that the DOS?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's moving forward. There's a year left on that contract for creating a climate resiliency plan with a focus on flooding. There's going to be a community workshop. I believe it's planned for June 20th. Happy birthday, me. So we'll all be celebrating together at that workshop. So details are coming together for that, but essentially it's looking for further community feedback on a number of proposed project focuses for flood resilience in the village.
Okay, and that's being administered by, or the team that's working on that is Campani and Schwarting, correct?
Yeah, Companion Schwarting is the contractor, and then there's a project action committee, which we're really excited that 2 new members just joined from Stony Brook University's climate program there to help further put input on the plan, which is the concept is that this plan will be used for sort of a roadmap for infrastructural improvements for the village moving forward as far as flood mitigation goes.
We need a quorum for that next meeting,
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm.
So,
So
is there something that we need to do to, do we need to plan around those 2 people first and then work the next, because we need a action committee meeting before the workshop, correct?
correct. So I think what I was going to propose, this was on my list of things to tackle tomorrow, but sort of send out like 3 options for dates and times to for everyone, including yourself, the clerk, anyone who wants to participate, as well as the PAC member meeting.
Have you ever used Doodle?
Yes,
Can we use Doodle?
I'm a doodle girl. Yeah.
Let's go with the
absolutely.
Doodle.
Yeah. Do the doodle poll.
'Cause
Actually,
it's so easy,
yes, yeah,
right?
perfect.
Okay.
So I'll be doodling tomorrow then, as well as
Yay.
yeah,
What you're talking about.
doodle poll.
You've never been.
But you must, because,
Yeah.
because
That's getting personal.
Councilmember Kornreich's office sent out their invitation and said, click here for the
Oh,
Doodle.
okay.
There you
Yeah,
go.
you'll find out real quickly.
There you go. So so that, as well as continuing to I've been coordinating with Irene at the Department of State on all of the requirements and meeting, and so I spoke to her yesterday about how, we're going to be taking these steps, but also transitioning, that I would have an internal conversation to figure out who would be having those conversations with her moving forward to keep us essentially on track and make sure that we are staying within compliance to be sure that we are getting the money back from the state for the grant.
Which we've gotten the first pay rec back. We've gotten 17,850 back already. So there's another 65,000 left, based off of how much needs to be spent.
And good news, our new grants coordinator, manager, administrator, Lisa Matto, started officially today. She was in the office today for quite some time going through our grants, so,
Wonderful.
yeah. And not to say that that's the only resource that we need for something like this, but that's a big step forward.
Excellent. Thank you.
Our clerk's office is going out with an RFP for cleaning services. I don't think this village hall has been cleaned in 20 years. Just to connect to our number 25 on the list is the courtroom renovation through the JCAP grant, that you'll see a change in our courtroom, the look and feel of our courtroom within the next 5 months or so, correct? Yeah, it has to be completed by a certain time. And so we're looking forward to that. Our Justice Court clerk is leading that initiative, working with the clerk's office. Roof repair, we went out with RFP for 5 roofs that are in need of repair in the village of Port Jefferson. And we received, the bid opened last week.
The bid opened last week. We received 4 responses. We had several companies joining our walkthrough. Approximately 6 to 8 companies joined the walkthrough. 4 solid bids. Our deputy Mary created a very concise spreadsheet showing, because there are various options for each roof, and what each company bid on each portion. So we will be discussing that in a joint meeting on Friday morning, and possibly coming back to this board for a vote, hopefully at the end of the month on the 29th.
We're also going out for RFP for work renovating our sidewalks in Rocketship Park, along the tennis courts, and on Wynn Lane. It's a 3-step RFP. They are not they are mutually exclusive, but they are also can be combined. So we're looking at that. And do you want to say something about that, Stephen?
Just that the tennis sidewalks are related to a downtown revitalization grant through the county, whereas the Wind Lane and the Rocket Ship Park sidewalks will be utilizing ARPA funds to rehab those sidewalks.
Right.
Depending on how much money is left of the ARPA funds.
Okay, and the same can be said for the roof repairs being covered through opera funds as well.
That is correct.
Okay,
Are we specifying material for the sidewalks?
That's in the RFP. It is part of the specs, yes.
will be in the RFP, yes.
And what are we requesting quotes for?
It's currently written for Stampcrete to try and keep the red brick look of the park. So it's going to be concrete, but Stampcrete with the red dye.
Got it. And would they quote out the brick replacement too, just so we know the cost comparison? Obviously, it's going to be more.
That might be part of the spec, yeah. Because, and what we want to do with, and we have some consideration, what we want to do with that brick if it's not being used for the sidewalk. But, I don't know if it was the nature of how the brick walkways were created, or if there wasn't anyway, for the engineers to figure out, but, I think it was a discussion. I can't remember if it's in the description or not.
It's not for Wind Lane and for Rocket Ship, but I think that could be something we discuss with the value engineer to go over about tweaking the RFP a little bit. But to answer your question, to redo the bricks, it's a very expensive option because what they have to do is take all the bricks out, dig the trench, pour concrete down in order to keep the bricks from sinking because that's what's
Which
happening.
is what's happening,
Right.
yeah.
And then put the bricks back. So, I mean, that can be an option. It likely won't be the most cost-effective option.
And what if the bidders are willing to give an estimate?
We
Yeah,
can
for-
we can certainly ask for it. There's no question about it. That's
If
put
not-
it in as an option and then see what the prices come in at.
Right. If nothing else, just to see what
Have you looked at those bricks?
I have looked at those bricks.
How do they look to you?
They're messy right now, so something definitely needs to happen.
How does the quality of the brick look? Not just the walkway itself, but the quality of the bricks themselves. Have you looked at that?
I mean, like which brick? No, I'm just kidding.
All of them?
All the
Yeah.
They're quite expensive now.
They're
Buck.
77 cents a piece or
Something like
70
that,
cents a
maybe
piece or
about-
something like that.
Depending upon the brick, could be $1.
And we might be able to repurpose them if we don't end up using a brick walkway option. So we'll talk to the value engineer about that, but take a look at those bricks individually. All around the rocket ship, around the tennis courts, and look at Wind Lane.
But we're looking to retain the bricks, and I mean, they're not just gonna take it.
If we can
Trash them.
repurpose them,
Okay.
we will.
Okay. Maybe there's a market. They wanna purchase it
Again,
from
look
us.
at the bricks,
Yeah.
so. Maybe 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 is okay. Number 10 is the recharge basin project, the second phase of the FEMA project to repair and remediate the recharge basin between Old Homestead Road and Oakwood Road. We just got the approval today from Dishes FEMA to move forward with the final aspect of that project. So Stephen's been in touch with PW Grosser to finalize the work that needs to be done to get the contractor to. We have the contractor's estimate on that?
We actually do. So
Oh.
we have the contractor's estimate. We have the scope change of what needs to happen for
So
the additional
That
mitigation.
was great news to get today, that they, we
Yes.
changed the scope of that project based on the original design, right, was needed to change because of the amount of rainfall that occurred and how we saw the original project in work, in situ, as you say. So the scope of work changed because we saw how the existing project was handling the overflow and the outflow. And
And it's still within the actual parameters of what we designed. It's just moving the catch basins from the road in line with the actual recharge basin, because that's based off of Grosser's observed observations on how the water was flowing.
so we'll be happy to get that done, looking for it to be completed before the end of August, correct?
August 31st was the
Okay.
deadline extension we requested.
52 Old Homestead Road is a residence property that is taking a hit based on the watershed coming off of Old Homestead Road. So PW Grosser is also working on that, and we have a scope that could end up costing between $5,000 and $30,000.
20,000.
20. And so that are we approving that
We did
funding at the
that.
next?
We did that in
one
April,
already.
and the PO's been
The
created.
Barnum we're approving in May, correct? The Barnum
Yes, that's the
project.
hope,
We're
yep.
we're looking to approve the funding in May. We've already approved the funding for Old Homestead, and that project is moving forward.
Yes, a PO was created, so it's gonna, as soon as the work can get started, it will.
Okay. Number 12 and 13, Bluff Phase 1 repair and Phase 2 completion. We are waiting for FEMA still to be able to move forward with Phase 2 work. And we are discussing with the engineer of record and the contractor of record for Phase 1 as to what should come first, the repair or the start of Phase 2. And we're leaning towards the start of Phase 2. But in order to start Phase 2, we're waiting for the engineer to provide reports to FEMA. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So, and they're monitoring reports. Is that what Dishes and FEMA are waiting on?
there's multiple things. There's an environmental review that's in the state that they're reviewing, that they have to sign off on, send it back to FEMA so that they can then tell us to proceed, as well as the monitoring review and the drone study.
So the drone study was completed last week,
I think so.
Eureka. And FEMA had indicated that we should hear from them before the end of April, but really, it's spring, right? Really, if we're optimistic, they said spring.
Yeah, that was best case. Early April was best case.
So that's where that stands. The flood reduction study is another FEMA grant, and do you know what we're waiting on for that?
We need to schedule a kickoff meeting with FEMA and Dishes in order to start that process moving forward.
Who's we?
The village, we need to coordinate with Dishes to get a kickoff meeting. We just submitted our second quarterly report to them, and so there's just been a lot of going back and forth. So we're waiting on them to set up the meeting with, and then we'll move forward.
Do they set it up or do we set it up?
I believe they do, but I'll double check.
Thank you. This is another Suffolk County grant that is a collaboration with the chamber, the bid, and the village to update the crosswalks in downtown. 13 crosswalks are targeted, and our value engineer is working on that in real time, so we should have some more information about that on Friday. He's been in contact with vendors and probably will go out for RFP very soon on that. It looks like, I don't know why I put HVAC repair at the rinks. It's not HVAC, it's updating the cooling refrigeration system in the rinks. That is something that is going to be funded through the ARPA
Yes, it's
fund as well.
converting R22, which is now banned, to R449, as well as fixing some of the equipment that was damaged years ago by apparently somebody climbing on the pipes.
Mhm.
So that's going to be fixed, as well as changing out the refrigerant.
Do we know when that will happen? The
I
Rinks
bel-
is managing that project,
Yeah,
right?
I believe they were targeting late summer, early fall originally in the discussions, but I have, it's part of my work session, get the funding set up and in
Okay.
capital.
Okay. Looks like we need to do the same thing with our HVAC system in the village center because we're using R22 for air conditioning there and we're going to have to upgrade that too. So our value engineer is helping us get quotes for that and figure out what that looks like. Because all refrigeration systems have to be upgraded as per the state.
Who is the value engineer?
Roger Corsella.
It's all
Mhm.
Roger.
Mm-hmm. Number 18 is we are currently operating under a permit with the DEC to manage the clean fill at 44 Fairway Drive and Old Homestead Road. That is a project that we'll have to address at some point. So that's on the list. Our treasurer's looking at doing an RFP for an independent auditor, correct?
Yeah, to do the yearly audit.
Mhm.
Yes.
So do you have a time frame when that RFP might go out? Because we're
Um,
getting ready to close our books, right?
Correct. I'd like to work with our financial consultant to
Mhm.
develop an RFP so that we can get the best group of candidates possible to submit responses.
And the finance committee will weigh in on that,
Yes.
okay? We're also, and I look to the treasurer again, looking at doing a capital asset inventory, which we approved last month, I believe, in our agenda to fund that. Because, and then we want to get rid of that, that fatal flaw, what is it called? The
Material weakness.
material weakness in our annual independent audit.
And I
It's both. It's both.
and I have a resolution to fund that project for this month to be approved. So we can go
$17,000, something like that?
16,900.
Okay. The whaleboat storage facility, that is a wish list, and just a quick update, I ran into Phil Chavone from LISEC, who is actively speaking with the Gardner Foundation on trying to get a grant for completing the whaleboat build project, trying to get the funding to complete the project. Does not include the storage facility, it does include a tarp to cover the whaleboat, and it also includes a trailer to trail to move the whaleboat around. And so they responded to some questions from the Gardner Foundation and are waiting to hear back from them. So that's as current as Sunday. Rebecca, number 22, this isn't really a grant, really, this is a relationship with the USGS, right? You mentioned it earlier. Do you want to talk a little bit, snapshot about what that looks like?
Absolutely. So this is a federal level flood study that I discovered through our climate resilience coordinator from Sea Grant. She put me in touch with USGS. I pitched Port Jefferson Village as the poster child of compound flooding. That's flooding from our stormwater runoff from our hills, our high groundwater table, and our harbor, and seeing how all of those kinds of flooding interact. They selected us as one of 3 study sites to bring this top-notch, cutting-edge technology to understand how these types of flooding interact and therefore understand better as we look at infrastructure projects to mitigate the flooding, which projects will actually have a positive effect on flood mitigation, as opposed to just kind of guessing and hoping that if we put, a drain here, or if we do this, hopefully it'll have an effect. So these models that they're going to be creating for us are going to really help us understand. So that's a huge key to moving forward and in the solution to this issue. They'll be coming down to Port Jeff next week to sort of kick off, meet the team here. I imagine we'll have some action items coming out of that, just as far as information to give them, whether it's items from the DOS project that we've been working on, previous studies, just handing them whatever they need, and then again, hopefully walking them around so that they could get a visual of the village and the study site.
Is there anyone from the Conservation Advisory Council that you think would be interested in getting involved with this?
I can ask. I have one member in mind who works in this field, who might, if he's willing and has time, would be able to, I think, contribute a
It
lot.
would be ideal for, for longevity
Sure.
and continuity
Mhm.
to have one of our council's boards, become deeply involved in this
Sure,
work.
sure. Yeah, and he's already on the PAC for the DOS project,
Okay.
so that would be a good
That would be
crossover.
a good connection.
So I will reach out to him and make that request. But yeah, very excited to meet those folks in person.
And how long does that study last? Is it 4 years?
No, I think it's shorter than that. Again, it's whatever their timeline is. I know they're already a year or maybe even close to 2 years into their project study, but the first year or two was creating the modeling software engines and then now they're at the application process, which is where we come in.
Okay.
So I think we'll have a lot more information after Monday, and again, that's no cost to the village, which is extra exciting.
Thank you. Number 23 is in anticipation of whether or not the planning board approves this project coming up, which is Conifer 2 Station Crossing. Is that
Or Jeff Cross.
Port Jeff Crossing? It's the multifamily development that is located just north of the Conifer 1 building that's up on Main Street and Station Street. And this one will be at Main Street and Perry Street. But there was a grant that was applied for by VHB to the state of New York, which was approved, awarded to, and the village was a partner with Conifer in this grant. So do you want to talk about that project a little bit, Stephen, or is it premature to talk about that right now?
No, I was just, all I was
It
gonna
would
say
just
is,
mean that we would be processing.
yeah, it's in process.
the
It's
financials.
dependent on the building department.
Okay. Our clerk's office is working on a record storage and retention or shredding project. Is that an RFP or is that a county contract or is it a Sourcewell or how are we?
It's not an RFP yet because we're exploring ways to do things most economically and or for free. I participated in a conference call / meeting on April 29th hosted by the Brookhaven Town Clerk regarding the new facility there. And I would love to have a tour of that. Tours are available. They are offering a rate of $3 per stored box to neighboring municipalities. And their area is temperature controlled, humidity controlled, fireproof, and very, very well secured. You have to give the name of the person from our municipality that will be visiting, which records are requested. They're touting a 24-hour turnaround time for retrieval of records. So I think it would behoove us for me to go see that facility for sure, and maybe take some other of our team members at Village Hall. So that's number one. That's tied into a larger project that we're working on for record retention or lack thereof, the opposite of which is shredding. So once we check our record retention schedule, we can earmark which boxes could be shredded. And I'm checking with New York State to see if those can be handled for free. There are, I believe through Department of State, there is a service where they will shred up to, take for shredding, 100 boxes per trip. So that is a large-scale project that we're undertaking.
Right now, our boxes are stored in the maintenance facility up at the country club.
How many boxes do we have?
I haven't counted them.
I don't know. We have no idea.
And is it $3 per year, per month, per box?
$3 per box per year.
Pretty reasonable.
But the idea is you'll shred whatever can be shredded first, so we don't have to have that moved and stored.
And all of that has been digitized already? This is just a,
And digitization does not count for retention.
no, of course. What of ours has been digitized then? There was a large digitization effort.
Building, up in the building department, we have,
The records that we retain above and Bob, you may know more about this than I do, but what I've seen up there is employee records, payroll,
time
time
cards.
cards.
Some of those,
Mostly items from Village Hall.
some of those, by the way, have a retention of forever. Such like a time card. Okay, those things need to be kept forever.
But that building is not fireproof, waterproof,
Weatherproof in
Weatherproof.
any way.
at all.
Secure.
Secure. Yeah,
None of
yeah.
that. Other than
None of
that,
So
Got it, yeah.
But-
Thank you.
you're welcome.
we'll get that under control. JCAP, we discussed. Website migration is in progress with Civic Plus. Clerk Perillo, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
We had an extensive list of deliverables that needed to be accomplished for our first meeting. All that was undertaken was provided to Civic Plus with great success. We had a follow-up meeting with our account manager thereafter. And when I say we, this is truly a team effort. It's myself, Mary, Rita, Teresa. Those are,
So the clerk, the deputy clerk, Teresa is our tech person, and
our senior office assistant.
yeah.
So we have a lot of players involved in the project. We've also asked for opinions, if you would, from other team members in Village Hall when such is called for, so that we have a multifaceted approach to everything. We're expecting the next interaction will be on July 5th. And thereafter, we'll have approximately 2 months until we should see our new website up and going. But we are very pleased so far with our interactions with Civic Plus. They're holding us to task and we the same. So it's working well.
Thank you. The number 27 is also under the clerk's office. It's the email migration process from Google Gmail to Microsoft Office/Outlook suite. And Rebecca, you had asked about this earlier. There are a couple of iterations of an email that that is scheduled to go out to everyone with a @portjeff.com email address, including everyone sitting around this table. And it's not uncomplex, right? The whole process. So we're trying to make sure that there's a little FAQ section on it and who to call, how to speak to someone if you have an issue that you need covered immediately. I think we're going to be providing the tech company's contact information for real-time support. But you want to talk about that a little bit too?
So we're beginning the process this Sunday, and we're doing that on purpose for least disruption possible. So it'll begin on Sunday, which is the 12th, and we anticipate it ending on the 16th. It's being worked in such a way that there is little to no disruption to the work schedule. Teresa from Tab Technology is working with ITS, and ITS will be available for us round the clock. But again, there should not be any disruption. This gives us the opportunity to, as a second phase, finally get to our .gov.
And
That was your question.
That was my question.
That was your question. That gets us to the .gov finish line.
All emails will be retained and passed through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Push through. Mhm.
What about Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, Google, like any work products that we've created?
Teresa's working with ITS to figure that out.
I believe they can be easily converted to the Microsoft equivalents of Sheets to Excel, Docs to Word.
But is there any concern about them just disappearing?
It doesn't seem to be, no.
Good question. And then, last but certainly not least, on this list anyway, is 6 Acre Park. So we had talked about that a little bit. We know where that stands, and it's just, there's a lot going on. So, any questions? I feel like that's it. And then you have your exec session items, so. But that is my.
This is all that.
Hmm?
28 items.
There's more, but
Oh, I'm sure.
yeah. Okay, so,
talk.
I know, I know he does. So we'll move over to the, Dave, do you have anything you want to discuss with us today?
Sure, just, we're still, ready, I think, poised to have a secondary or follow-up meeting with the building department and our investigative team and our fire marshals to start writing tickets using the templates we provided, and going after, quality of life and health and safety issues that are, exist in the village, and get them into court in a timely manner, get their cases adjudicated in a timely manner, and most importantly, bring about safety and compliance in a timely manner. I'll be setting up a meeting with the clerk and Andy's team, hopefully in the next week or so, to have them hit the ground running and develop the procedures to get those compliance tickets issued as necessary.
Thank you. Clerk Perlow?
Thank you. This evening, I'm asking that we please go out of process and approve 4 resolutions owing to time constraints. 3 of those are employment related. 2 of those are very exciting for our DPW area. One is for a hire in DPW, the other is for a hire in the Parks Division of DPW. And the last is for an event application submitted by Jenny Bloom for the library.
Jenny Bloom being the library director, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so,
So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to start with resolution number 1. This was sent as an updated on Monday.
Do we have this in our packet to follow along?
Yes,
it is,
Ah,
and it
Yes,
says
it is.
updated on
it
it.
says updated with the
Thank you.
highlight.
Just a question.
Sure.
So will this be at our next meeting so that if any of the public wants to comment on it, they can?
The public does not have the right to comment on resolutions. They could always speak their mind if they're hearing this at the open comment.
Right,
But
okay,
if this was in the regular course of the meeting and public comment was open and closed, you guys would vote on this resolution without the need to. open
okay.
it to the
I
public.
just wanted to make sure that we weren't
You're not usurping the
denying
process.
anybody's.
we are not.
Right, okay, good.
Thank you. The first is a resolution hiring Glenn Skidmore as a full-time laborer in the Department of Public Works at an annual salary of $33,280 per year, effective May 16th, 2024. The standard 26-week civil service probationary period applies to this hiring, as do all the provisions of the collective bargaining agreement currently in force between the Village of Port Jefferson and CSCA Local 1000. May I have a motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution hiring Brian Hall as a full-time laborer in the Department of Public Works in the Parks Division, and an annual salary of $33,280 per year effective May 16th, 2024. The standard 26-week civil service probationary period applies to this hiring, as do all the provisions of the collective bargaining agreement currently in force between the Village of Port Jefferson and CSCA Local 1000. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution ratifying the hiring of the following seasonal part-time employees as requested by Recreation Center Manager Renee Lemmerman. Jack Maloney as an assistant tennis instructor to be employed from May 1st, 2024 through November 1st, 2024, at an hourly wage rate of $18 per hour. Nathan Lawler as a tennis instructor to be employed from May 1st, 2024 through through November 1st, 2024, at an hourly wage rate of $16 per hour. Madeline Matria as a tennis instructor to be employed from May 1st, 2024 through November 1st, 2024, at an hourly wage rate of $16 per hour. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Lastly, resolution approving the event application submitted by Jenny Bloom on behalf of the Port Jefferson Free Library for the provision of road closure and traffic control services on specified village streets from 4:00 p.m. through 8:00 p.m. on May 31st, 2024, with the rain date of June 7th, 2024, for the grand opening of the park at 114. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Thank you.
I'll second.
Just
Thank-
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, have the neighbors been notified?
I have already asked as a condition that the neighbors please be notified.
Perfect.
And what streets are we talking about?
Thompson.
Is it Tom, is it just Thompson?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have already asked for vetting from Code and DPW, who changed some of the parameters, and I've already let the library know that that'll be a condition.
So I'll read the recommendation of DPW. Would that be okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So the suggestion is for blocking the parking stalls and sidewalks on the south side of Thompson, leaving the traffic lane open for residential traffic. They would also need to notify the surrounding residents, as they would have be impacted the greatest. So those were the recommendations, and that was the conversation with the library.
So there'll be a lane for traffic if needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I will also have some add-ons for our agenda meeting on the 29th. One is to schedule a public hearing for our June meeting, and that is to put forth a proposed local law amending Chapter 213. That's our stormwater management chapter. And this is per recommendation of Brian McCaffrey, who is our MS4 consultant and specialist. The reason for it is because there are changes from New York State regarding MS4, and we need to be compliant with those by a date in July, and this would bring us into compliance. I have a draft of the local law, which will be shared with our village attorneys for, of course, obviously, their perusal and review. Okay, and that'll be circulated as soon as the draft is available. In addition to that, we have annual contracts. One is the removal and hauling of leaves, another is snow removal, another is a bid for the grinding of leaf materials. So you will see those three for the recommendation of Steve Gallagher. I'm also suggesting a resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals from interested mobile food vendors as concessionaires for the use of village-owned property at the east and west beaches. We've been approached by numerous vendors that in the past may have already been there. So this would be the most equitable solution.
Is this food trucks?
Yes.
That's exciting. Yeah, we discussed this. I forget if Mayor, you were on the board at the time. We had put out an RFP and gotten someone in the shack at East Beach for a season, but it was determined by means of being there and then not being able to be there that it was so dysfunctional as far as it would get to be 120 degrees inside the shack. The water, like just everything, unfortunately, it cannot be used as a food shack. But something else we had discussed was having food trucks down there, which would make the feeling of the place just so much more vibrant and welcoming, and a place to go, grab a bite to eat, let the kids run around, and enjoy sunset at the beach. So very excited to hear that. Thank you.
Welcome.
The only problem is if at East Beach, West Beach, I'm sorry, it's a small parking lot.
Small.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't be really a lot of room for a food truck.
Right. So it would be,
Plenty at East Beach.
yeah, it would be up to the board to limit or to allow one, or to allow only certain times or differing schedules once we receive our responses.
Yeah, and they'd be aware of the parameters of the parking area and see if they can accommodate
Right.
that. Yeah. But good point.
I referenced a resolution from Maggio Environmental, regarding Maggio Environmental. And there has been talk of how do we reduce our prices, what can possibly be done. Maggio came back to us and offered to eliminate the every Wednesday pickups for recycling in bulk, so that the bulk would be picked up only on the first Wednesday of every month.
But
They still
recycling
do
would
recycle.
remain.
Okay.
Recycling
All
would
right,
remain.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
question I had. I wasn't sure. Okay.
Yes, recycling would remain. This, however, is predicated upon a blanket sign-on by everyone who uses their services, and it would result in approximately a 10% savings to each customer. They've also, and Mayor, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but they've also graciously offered a tour of their facility in Cuttrock. And that's scheduled for May 24th at 1:30. The suggestion from the mayor is that we use the village van, which holds 15 people. Okay, so open it up to residents or anyone who'd like to join us there.
And the Board of Trustees.
Of course, anyone who'd like to join us there.
So just a little background, when we started reading, we saw the petition for, changing the nature of the contract. We got, last year, I don't know if you remember receiving an email from the clerk's office saying, what do you think about this plan or this plan? But we never really understood how and why the permit became what it was, because I know the feedback that I gave was a little different than what the actual permit became. Because why do we need bulk pickup every day, every Wednesday, once a week? So with that said, we invited Maggios in, and the principal of Maggios came in and actually gave us an education on trash collection and waste management, and it was fascinating. And one of the most important things that my mother doesn't understand to this day is that they sort trash at the facility. Doesn't matter what you put in the bin. They separate and sort everything. So it just makes it more convenient for people and a reminder for people to put things out at a certain time. When you can put recycle out on a trash day, they'll take it back to the plant and do what they would do with it, no matter what. So that was one of the most interesting. I can never convince my mother that that's actually what happens. But that said, there are just so many other fascinating things that Stanley spoke with us about that are data-driven decisions that they make based on the routes, based on the people, based on safety, based on so many factors that residents don't, unless you hear what goes into the thought process and the business management operation of this type of work, you're not going to be able to imagine it. So that's why we really wanted to open up the tour, God bless you, the tour to the members of our community. And that's why he's said, we'll do a tour once a week if you want to, but we figure if there's enough people who are interested, we'll promote it on social media. It'll be first come, first serve. And if we should do 2, if we should do 3, we can always run another bus out there. So a 10% discount. There are other ways to get discounts through Maggios if you contact them directly, senior discounts, et cetera, et cetera. But this would be one rate discount, and the village would get one rate through the permit that the village operates with Maggios.
But you have to get a buy-in from everybody in the village, everybody that uses Maggio, is that?
Yes.
Because each home,
A buy-in, no, it is relevant to and relative to every single home.
To every
There's-
single home. Every
don't-
single home will.
They don't
Oh,
offer
okay.
different pickup times and
Right,
options
It's not like
for different
everybody's voting
residences.
and has to.
Okay,
No,
So-
I'm sorry
yeah.
for the phraseology. You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and that's, I wonder if there's a way that, 'cause, I mean, myself as a Maggio customer, that sounds fine to me. If there's a bulk thing to put out and you keep it in the garage until that one time a month, But I wonder if there's a way that we can solicit feedback from the public between now and when we vote on this, whether it's a village social media post, an email that goes out, because this is something that does affect all the residents, and just have a poll yes, no on this.
Definitely. And I've talked to the administrator of one of the community Facebook pages that would help us do that.
Perfect.
And we could also put it up on porchf.com, just to say, hey, this resolution is, but do we think that they're going to say no
No,
to a 10% discount?
but I've learned in government not to assume, and yeah, if nothing
No,
else.
but if it's a resolution, it's not a public hearing, it's a permit that we're revisiting, which
Right.
we'll revisit again at the end of December
Well,
for the
Right,
the
and
following.
I think if nothing else, I don't think that the majority of the public would say no to this, but it's also a good outreach tool to let people know. hey,
Agreed.
this is,
Mhm.
this is something, so that we don't have a couch going out
Right.
and sitting on
For a month.
sidewalk. So it's sort of, hey, the village is looking at this. Most people say yes, and then, that's the assumption that I would make. And
Is
then.
Stanley
they
going to
know.
come and present?
Yeah, yes,
He was going to come to a meeting, right?
yes, he was
And
going to,
is he coming to the May meeting?
I don't think so, I think that was the problem. I think that was the problem.
Well,
And-
we originally talked about April, then,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, we can also, we can maybe also ask Maggio for their help with outreach as well, because they might.
it would be required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's only reading? Pardon me? Who's only reading agent?
Oh, oof. Okay, next.
Next and almost last, docents. So we would like to name Mark Sternberg and Chris Ryan as docents for the Drown Meadow Cottage Museum. That is one of the requirements for the grant that we obtain every year for the museum. And Michelle has been instrumental in helping us through that process. But we do need to name docents, and we would like to name the two of them.
And they're agreeable.
I haven't told them yet.
Oh, okay.
Telling them right now.
That discussion has happened. Yeah,
Joking.
yeah. They actually have been acting as docents. They've been acting as docents, but the grant requires docents and not, and so it's a reimbursement of their time and their efforts to manage the museum.
Yeah, the way that the budget is actually written, and I've been working with Nicole about it, is it's going to be tweaked a little bit. We're going to have one is a docent, one's going to be a contributor historian. But also we need a curator, so we need to hire somebody within the budget for Drown Meadow to be a curator, on top of having.
So this resolution will be updated.
This is based off of the conversation.
Or
that
there'll be
I had
another
with Nicole.
resolution.
There will likely be another resolution.
Do
Okay.
these have to be 3 different people?
We're looking into whether either one of those two can actually be the curator. It does not appear so at the time, but we need to do a little bit more research
I mean, based on the grant?
based on Nicole advising us of what the definition of a curator is for grant purposes. A curator has very specific details and requirements and contributions attached to it.
Okay.
Have to be certified by the
Yes.
official
It's
blah, blah, blah.
yes, it's a serious title.
Yeah.
It's a regulated title.
Yes. Last but not least, for the election, the absentee ballot application and the early mail-in ballot applications are both available online in both English and Spanish. They're available on our website and, of course, as always, in Village Hall in the clerk's office. And I think that concludes my report.
Is it appropriate to ask in this setting if there are any updates about the election that we aren't aware of, that we should know about as a village?
It's appropriate to ask, I don't. Sure.
Consider it asked.
Okay,
Hey Sylvia, any updates in the village?
Okay, let's ask a specific question. When are petitions due? Can I ask that question?
According to the New York Conference of Mayors, petitions are due on May 14th
At the close of business?
at 5 o'clock.
5 p.m.
At 5 o'clock PM,
Is the clerk here until 5 o'clock PM?
absolutely,
Okay, on that day,
of course.
okay. Any other questions for the clerk? All right, Treasurer Gafka.
Thankfully, we've covered quite a few things that I was going to talk about. So,
That, you could say that again.
just as an update, a lot of what I wrote down is resolutions that I'm going to have. I will have formal numbers by the end of the month. I'll distribute the actual resolution and budget amendments once they've all been created prior to being on the agenda, so everybody can have a chance to look at them. One of the additional ones I'm going to have is we were given the CHIPS budget for the year. There's various aspects to the CHIPS, which is the Consolidated Highway Improvement Grant through New York State. You know, there's multiple little facets. You have CHIPS, EWR, which is your emergency weather. It's like winter weather. PAVE NY, which is money to just resurface streets, and then POP, which is pave over potholes. But it's all really one pot of money, just different forms to submit. But the village is eligible for $373,000. So we're going to add that. I'm going to have a budget amendment to increase the budget and capital for the paving for this upcoming year, along with the National Grid money, which was another 115. Based off of the estimates that Steve was provided from the contractor on county contract, we're likely going to need more to get all of the residential areas that need to be paved done. So I'm going to work with try and keep the budget within constraints so that there's a little money left over to then transfer over to at least get all of the residential areas done. North Country was also on that list, but it's such a big piece that the residential areas really need to be done first, but those conversations are ongoing.
How does this year's CHIPS funding compare to last year's?
It's about the same.
Okay.
It's plus or minus $3,000. So obviously working with the clerk's office on all of the RFPs and the bid openings, and we've covered all the grants. There's one more step to do with the budget. Have to upload the budget to New York State, but that's obviously the budget's adopted. And finally submitted the annual report for the ARPA funding through the SLFRF website. But we have to, the reason we're pushing forward with these projects is that we have to have that money committed before the end of December, or you lose the ARPA funds and have to give it back, which we don't want to do. So that's why we're pushing to reinvest in infrastructure so that it's at no cost to the taxpayers. And unless you guys have any questions on my report, that'll be it.
That's it?
What?
We covered, covered a
No.
lot of it already.
Teacher, that's not an appropriate question.
Just can you give us a quick update on your interactions and meetings with the Finance and Budget Committee?
Yes, so we have, working with the Budget and Finance Committee, which it's such an excellent group. We met with Renee over at the Village Center to gauge her input on the room rentals, and she did a lot of outreach to other municipalities that, what are their rates like, what are their structures like, and the far majority, it's resident, non-resident, black and white, that's it. So we're looking at, me as the liaison for the committee, they're looking at a structure that incorporates resident, non-resident, and then not-for-profit village partner type rates and we're still vetting that out and looking at how can we get the Village Center room rentals to then kind of break even with the rising costs as we continue on in the future. The Village Center is a service provided, but it also, the programs involved, we want it to be able to break even to reduce taxpayer costs. Everybody's aware of the glide path, so the tax base is shrinking, so we need to be able to stay self-sufficient in the areas that we can. Obviously, you can't do that with paving, can't do that with trash. You know, there's no, that's what the village provides. So this is an area where we can try and reduce that burden. And, you know, there's a lot of really good ideas. We're trying to develop a model to be able to develop the rate and what potentially will be recommended to the board to charge for the room rentals. And I believe we're going to be establishing a chairperson and a secretary
Good.
at the end of the month to really formalize the committee in that aspect. And I look forward to their input when we go out to the RFP for the auditors to really take a deep dive, so to speak, as to, you know, what do we want from our independent auditors in the future, so that everybody can really feel confident in what's being provided in the financials.
I think it'll be also interesting to hear their feedback about and insights as we receive information from the capital fund audit,
Yes.
capital fund review.
Yeah, I reached out to them to get an update. I haven't heard back yet. They did coincide, our budget season and their tax season coincided
Sure,
a little bit this year. So
sure.
I know they were waiting on information, so I will follow up with them, but they'll get back to me before the
Okay.
end of the week.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, so that concludes the reports. Any further? Okay, so I think right now on our agenda, the next item is a motion to go into executive session to discuss a contract negotiation and the specific performance of a particular employee. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We will be back.